Good evening. Welcome to episode 197, Defeat, Chaos, and a Playoff. As always, I am your host, Mike. I am joined by Kenny and joined by Oscar. We've got quite a bit to talk about. After the last 5 or so days, more or less, we came down, then we went further down, and now we come back up. You know, Oscar's always talking about the cliff. I feel like we fell off the cliff without a parachute this weekend, and then somehow we were able to patch that parachute up on the way down and get ourselves a little bit further up. But Kenny, how are you?
Great, guys. Good evening this afternoon with the results. So everything's good.
Yeah, Oscar, how are you feeling today?
I feel really good. Turn of the week. This week,
man,
turn to the positive.
Kenny and I are gonna have to deal with this guy.
Yeah, we're gonna have to attempt. Yeah,
bring him down. Yeah, bring it down a little bit. As always, for those of you who are tuning in, please make sure you leave us your comments, your thoughts, your feedback, your opinions. We'll also drop a link down below on the scroller if you want to call in. You can join us, share your opinions. I know people tend to be shy, but you can join without your video if you'd like, and you can give us your thoughts on the current moment at Benfica, whether it's the team, the players, the staff, the coach, the president, whatever you want to talk about. E para a malta que esteja bem no português, estejam à vontade, podem participar aqui nesta nossa conversa, deixem os vossos comentários, as vossas opiniões, todos percebemos português, por isso estejam à vontade. E desde já, abraço e obrigado. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, follow while you're tuning into us. Today, we are going to cover, obviously, Juventus 0, Benfica 2. We will talk about the next stages of the Champions League. We'll talk about this weekend's game against Real Amadora away, which won't be easy. And just kind of globally talk about the current state of the club. I don't think there's any need for us to go into the specifics of the game against Casa Pia. But I think as we go through the conversation, I think we can pull bits and pieces from that performance. And naturally, I don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole as it relates to, I guess, audio gate is what I'll call it. But I think it's worth touching on it because of Rui Costa's statements after the game today to the press. So we'll start with today's game, a game that Benfica comes into needing at least a draw to depend on themselves. We come away with a win. Somehow, unexpectedly, we not only come away with the win, but we end up coming into the 16th spot, which puts us in a seeded playoff spot, right? When everyone was talking about, you know, we could potentially fall to the last spot in the playoff, we're going to be unseeded. Somehow we come away and we grab the last spot of the seeded standing. So Benfica starts with, and again, there was a lot of doubt and uncertainty in terms of the 11. For some felt like they knew what was going to happen. So Turin starts at the back, Tomás Araújo on the right, Antonio Silva, Otamendi, and Bach comes in on the left-hand side to replace Carreras, who couldn't play because of suspension. There was question marks about Best playing there, but he seems to be on the way out. In the midfield, Auschwitz, Tinu, Kokshu, and then up top, Di Maria, Pavlidis, and Sheldrup. Kenny, I'll start with you since you joined first. Surprised by the lineup, first of all, and then second, what's your pulse check on how this game went?
Yeah, so overall, probably what I expected the starting lineup to be, considering current form and Carrera's absence. I mean, I don't think there were many surprises there. And then this seems to be kind of the core of the team that he feels comfortable with, where we've played pretty well. So no surprises there. I thought, Thiago Araújo covering, or actually Ba was playing for Carreras, right?
Yes, on the left.
They kind of swapped. Yeah, I mean, Araújo's kind of already played that position. He's had to step in there before, and he has the pace for it. So I thought, he did pretty well. overall from the game performance, I didn't catch the entire game. The first half, I was kind of on and off. But from what I saw, it seemed like we did pretty well in the first half, and then the second half was a grind until we got to the second goal. I really thought at some point in time there, they were just like running it down our throats. And Turin, I thought, came up with a couple of decent saves that kept us alive, and we got the result that we had. Now, I kind of want to go back because I feel like we've been going on a roller coaster ride with Benfica from result to result to result, and I want to be like super excited with this win. And I know we've passed to the next group stage, and maybe again, I'm really a pessimist at this point with Benfica, but let's be clear here. This is far from the Juventus that we've seen in the past. I mean,
Agreed.
Kenny's their captain. They were
He
not.
played left back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and honestly, I didn't think they were much of a challenge, and we almost gave it away in the second half, or not giving it away. I mean, with tie would have gotten us through.
Yep.
But it was not a difficult match or some. I thought we could have been more dominant in the complete game from the first half and the second half. So I'm not taking away from the victory. It was a good win, a good morale boost after everything that happened during the weekend. But this is, we'll see what happens in the next round. But this was, my feelings about it are not as high as probably, some folks.
All right. Oscar, I know, is on the other side of the spectrum with that. What's your feeling on this game, Oscar? And from the 11 perspective, I believe you guessed it right.
No, I guess they're right. And with the 11 that started today, I thought he could have changed a little formations. He could have gone to a back three. He could have adapted throughout the game, depending on how the game was being played. He could have adapted players to those positions because he had the personnel in the field without making a sub, right? But I think the back four and people, a lot of people question Bog being on the left side because it was going to be dangerous, blah blah blah. He's not safe there, but what he did today to Conceição, to Chico Conceição, was phenomenal. He put him in his pocket, and Conceição is a tricky player, and he can get away with. We've seen it this year in Italy. He can get away from a lot of players and top quality players, and Bach did a phenomenal job. And then, like I think that Kenny said, or if not, it was somebody in the comments. Tino was unbelievable today. He stepped in the back every time somebody got away from one of the guys. Tino was there. He was all over the field. I think today Tino had the performance of probably the best performance of this year, in my view. As a team, I think we hustled. We played really well. I think Lodge had the tactics absolutely correct for this game. We pressed high. We could have probably scored 3 goals in the first half if we didn't miss some sitters.
Yep.
And Juventus had basically nothing in the first half. Second half, obviously, we had to give them the ball. But even with that, I don't think other than Turin did probably 1 or 2 saves that were kind of decent quality, but he didn't much. He didn't have much work to do. He saved some balls, some crosses that he jumped up and got. Other than that, and we could have put the game away in the second half too. Some chances that we missed that could have been crucial. We could have just put the game away. So I think today was one. It's funny because I was thinking about this earlier. There's been 4 games this season that I thought was going to be our hardest games. And those games, I think, was the games we played the best and dominated the games. It was against Porto, against Atletico, Juventus, and Barcelona, even though the refs took it away from us. Yep. Those 4 games, I believe we absolutely shined. And one of the games they got taken away from us. But I thought you got it right today. Today was a good day to be a Benfiquista, especially after what happened to the Audios.
Yeah, and I mean, in terms of stats, the game in itself, we had 34% versus 66, right? So in terms of possession, very similar to, I believe, what happened against Barcelona. First half was 67-33, right? So we didn't have much of the ball. But like you said, and and again, I'll say it again, and I've said it, I think I said it last week, is I've been a critic of Bruno Lage, and I think we all have in certain moments and certain phases. And today, I think he got it all right. Like I feel like I've criticized of like the starting 11 or the tactics to start the game were good, but then the changes weren't so good, or we didn't start the game so well, but then the second half we played right. Like Sporting, we didn't start the game well. Second half we played much better. Today, I thought the tactics were spot on from the start, and the changes I thought he hit them right on the head. Right, like when they were getting Karem ready to come in and Barreiro, I said, people were like, is he going to take out Kokshu? Is he going to take out Auschnitz? And I was like, you could potentially push Auschnitz wide, right, and put Barreiro in the middle. And he ended up doing that. He took Di Maria off, right? We needed legs.
Which is exactly what I was about to say.
Yeah, he took Di Maria off, which we needed to, right? And which he should have done against Casa Pia, right? Which he didn't end up doing. But today he ended up doing it because we needed those legs. And then he took Pavlidis off and put Amdouni in to, again, have some pace. He didn't have much of an impact, but to have some pace to try to push the Juve defense back. So, again, I've been critical of him. Today I can stand here and say the same thing. Is I thought he got the tactics right. I thought he got the substitutions right. And overall, I thought it was a really good performance. And touching on what Kenny said, I think agreed, right? Like, I don't think this Juventus team is the Juventus team of, when we went and tied their 0-0 with JJ in the Europa League to get into the final. They had McKinney playing left back, who's a midfielder. They had Tim Weah playing right back, who's, a winger. But nonetheless, right, like going there is not easy.
Back, and he came in because somebody got hurt.
Yeah, but in fairness, right, like when you look at their numbers in the league, right, they have like 13 ties, but only have one loss, right? And their loss was against Napoli this weekend, who's in first place. So they're very erratic in terms of performance and output, but nonetheless, they're still a pretty difficult team to beat. Right. And in the Champions League, they ended up behind us because we beat them, but they were on 12 points and we were on 10 going into this game. So they ended up with 3 wins, 3 ties, and 2 losses. And we ended up with 4 wins, 1 tie, and 1 loss. Who would have thought when you look back, 2 weeks on this game? I'm going to ask you both, and you can answer as you like, but right, Ba obviously isn't naturally a left back. I think it worked out well for him today because Conceição likes to come inside a lot, right? And him being a right-footed player, right, made it a little bit easier for him, opposed to if he had to go wide a lot. I think that only 2 times that Conceição did anything against him was when he went down the line versus cutting inside, and the 2 crosses that he put in were basically useless. I think one went to Trubin and one went to one of our defenders. But how do you guys see this playing out for the rest of the season for Ba? Like, does he now become a backup, right? Does Araújo all of a sudden become our starting right back, right? He's not a right back. We've gone down this road before with Morato, right? Obviously different type of player, different profile. One can play wide, one couldn't. He didn't have the characteristics. But, like, how do you guys see this playing out for Ba, who first year with Roger Schmidt was part of one of the best right wings of Benfica, right? Like firing all cylinders. And now he finds himself in a position where he's not a starter, but maybe. Like, how do you guys see this playing out? Whoever wants to go.
I'll go.
To me, Ba's issue is Di Maria.
Yes, he doesn't help defend.
Am I delaying?
Huge delay.
You're on a delay. Yeah.
Carry on.
Yeah, so yes, Di Maria doesn't help defend.
So Ba's. All right, so Ba's issue is Di Maria doesn't like defending, and obviously Araújo can cover that space a lot better than Ba, right? But I think we shouldn't be inventing. I think Ba is our right back. Araújo should be our starting center back, and then obviously at this point, Antonio Silva has to be the guy that sits on the bench. It is what it is. But I think to me, Araújo is our best center back right now today, and Ba is our right back. And we just have to figure out the system where Di Maria, Arsenal has to help defend that side to make it work.
But Kenny, I'm going to continue down this path with you. And if I could be wrong, but I'm almost positive that, you were one of the advocates for, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Mm-hmm. Right? How do you see this?
No, I agree with that I agree with that, but I also agree, or I'm of the notion that like you got to play in your natural position. And I think we saw last year when we were adapting Morata, it didn't work out, and you kind of ruin a player that way. And I don't think it would ruin, Arujo to be playing right back, but right back. But I feel like he is, like Oscar said, the better center back, and he should just play in his natural position and let Ba continue at right back. I think we live with it's a Di Maria issue. It's not really a Ba issue, in my opinion, right? So you got to play the guy in his natural position and hope the rest figures itself out.
Yeah, in touching on Tino, again, I've been very critical of him. My criticism of him isn't so much his defensive abilities, right? Like we know he's capable of, he's very good at
takeaways,
winning duels, recovering the ball. My stress with him is, what he does with the ball after the fact. And today there was a number of times where, and there's one specifically that I recall in the first half, he's in our defensive third on the left side of our defense, and he receives the ball with his back to midfield, and he turns with the ball down the line and breaks that line of pressure and comes out playing with his feet. And just in that turn, he takes, Vlahovic out of the play and takes maybe 2 or 3 other midfielders out of the play for Juventus, right? And those are the things that I criticize with him is he can recover the ball, but it's what he does with it after that could either make or break us, right? Whereas if he doesn't take that turn and come towards the line, and instead he plays a safe pass back, right? Juventus now keeps pushing forward, right? And then we get forced to play a long ball or we get caught. And today, I didn't see that, right? Today, for me, and what Oscar said is the same, that was probably one of the best overall performances I think I've seen Tino play ever in a Benfica shirt, whether it was from a defensive perspective, tackles, distribution. Like he played very well. And I'm going to ask you, Oscar, I'll start with you since you're on a delay and I don't want to make you guys wait to see who's going to go first. Do you think that Benfica going to get a player like Manu who can play in that position? He's going to challenge him. Do you think that could light a fire under Tino's ass to say, hold on a second, right? Before, there wasn't really a guy that could fit this mold like me, right? Not to say that he was complacent or he felt like he had a starting role no matter what, but competition's always good in a squad, right? And do you think this is that competition that Tino maybe needed to push him across that line to be like, hold on a second, if I suck, I'm going to sit on the bench. Now I got someone in my shadows. Now I need to step it up and be more consistent. Do you think that has an impact?
Go ahead, Ken.
No, I said it's for you since you're on a delay, Lembo.
This is the situation with Manu. Manu is to me is more technical, right? So he has the ability with his feet that Tino doesn't have going forward, right? I think Tino is not going to put a fire in Tino's ass. I don't think Tino changes the way he plays. I think Tino is Tino. So you like it or you don't like it. There's nothing about Tino that goes, oh shit, I better play better today because we have some competition. He's proven it the last 3-4 years that he's just gonna smile and play his game, and that's it. I think the person that's gonna be affected more, like, oh shit, I have somebody on my ass, is Koksu. That's
different type of player, though.
Yeah, I get it, but I think it's Koksu is gonna be probably the player's guy. Shit, I gotta step up my game. And Koksu had a phenomenal game today too. He played really, really well today. Yeah. And he's been playing well in against Barcelona. So I see that fire in his ass because there's a lot of potential in Koksu, and it feels like he's just holding back on a lot of that shit. And Tino is Tino. I don't think he gets better. He gets worse.
No, I totally agree with that because, and I'd like to disagree with Oscar, but on the Tino front, I've always been a supporter of Tino as well. And if I'm not mistaken, he did lose his position, like either it was earlier this season or at the end of last year.
Every season he's played at Benfica, he's never in his senior career, whether when he was on at Monaco, Getafe, Benfica, he's never played an entire season consistently as a starter. He always falls off like midway through the season.
Right. And so I remember him losing the position, and then I don't think to a fault of his own, because I always was a believer in Tino, and I thought we always played better with Tino on the field. And then when he gets back in there, when he gets another opportunity, he kind of takes hold of the role again and we play better. So from my view, I mean, I see what you're saying, Mike, but from what my experience in watching him, I do think he's a really good player in the midfield for us. My gripe with him is more of accompanying play. I feel like sometimes he's behind the play or catching up to the play.
Yep.
But as a ball stop,
which leads him to a lot. If you notice, he goes to ground a lot, right? And if there's one thing you learn when you're playing soccer, right? If you have to make a slide tackle, it's because you weren't in the right spot at the right time.
Yeah, true. But I still think he's a great ball stopper. Like, he does recover the ball really well. I don't know what his numbers are, but he's I mean, of recent memory, like he's definitely a top, ball recover type of player, and it gives us more opportunities. Like, he really is I think a great like, not overhyped player. He's just a good stalwart player on the field. On the Koksu though, I do, whatever. I am not a Koksu guy. I think he's a player with like a lot of bite, but no real like threat. Yeah, he got the goal today that kind of kept us at ease. And it was a great finish. I'll give him that. But I am not a believer in Koksu, and I would agree that I think the challenge of any guy coming into the midfield is going to be for Koksu.
To light a fire in his ass, yes, because he's the guy that can produce a lot more than what he's producing. So it's a guy like, shit, I have to step up. So
can he, though?
I don't think
I mean,
I keep hearing about in Tino, and I know you don't want to talk about the audios yet. I know you don't want to talk about the audios yet, but I think the Tino situation goes back to a lot of the 20 million. I can't sit somebody that costs 20 million, right? And it goes back to why he lost his spot back in the day when Vigo came into the play, right? So a lot of that shit goes back into how much money comes into the who we buy and how much we buy him for. And I think Tino is going to be always a scapegoat.
Fair, and we'll get into that. In terms of Tino's stats today, he had 81% passing efficiency. He had 3 long balls, and he had 2 of them were completed. He had 3 defensive activities in Juve's box. He had 9 recoveries of the ball. He had 4 intercepted passes. He had 5 clearances. And overall, he had 43 touches on the ball, which is crazy to me, right? When you see, he broke up the play 9 times. He intercepted 4 passes. He had 5 clearances, and he only touched the ball 43 times. Like, it's crazy. I feel like that.
I don't know what but that 9, the 9 and the 4 seems like a lot in a game for a player.
It is. Again, but if he can be the player that he was today, right? Naturally, I don't think he's going to put in a performance like he did today every game, right? If he can recover like he normally does, but just, in my opinion, be just a little bit better with the ball, I think it creates so much less stress for us coming out of the back, right? Because we don't get pinched so much, because we have, if you watch, and I mentioned it against Barcelona, Koksu barely got the ball in between our center backs. And if you watch other games, he's typically the guy that comes in, drops deep, and plays out of the back. A lot of teams, if they eliminate Koksu from coming to get that ball and force Tino to do it, right? If he can be better with that, then it's like shit, right? If we shut off Koksu, we forced it to Tino, but now he's a little bit better with the ball. He's more disciplined. So now you got to think like, hold on a second. Now we got 2 guys that can play out of the back. Now we got to be a little bit different approach. So if he can improve that, I think overall he's a very good player, because again, defensively, tackling, like there's no one else in the team that can do what he does.
No, not at all. Yeah.
I have a question for you, Mike. Who do you think in our lifetime is our best defensive center midfield?
Center mid or center defensive mid?
Defensive, like Tino's position.
So Trinco for me that I remember, I would probably say Feja.
Okay, was he good going forward? Because I was thinking of him too.
No, he wasn't good going forward, but he was better with. But he was better with his feet, in the sense of he was able to play a progressive pass, even though it wasn't an Enzo pass. It was a 10-yard progressive pass that could just break that line of pressure. I felt like Feja's play was great. Feja to me was one of our best defensive midfielders as well.
He was recovered a lot of balls and then gave the easy pass. Okay, to the side, to the front, the easy pass.
Safe,
and that, to me,
safe pass.
And to me was what Tinu is basically in a way doing, by the pass not going forward is going to go more to the sides and back, which it's not a big disadvantage compared to Feja.
It isn't, but what I'm saying is, and I'd have to go back and look at the stats, but my perception is let's say out of 10 passes that he plays in that deep role, 8 of them are sideways or backwards, right? Which again, if you're playing against a team that presses high, right? We've all played. If Kenny gives me the ball as the midfielder and I got pressure on my back and I play it back to Kenny, guess where that pressure's coming? Back to Kenny, right? Now Kenny's like, fuck, I can't give it back to you. What am I going to do? I'm going to dump it, right? Or I'm going to end up being forced to play a difficult pass. So if he can just, in my opinion, if he can play out of 10 passes, if he can play 2 more that are progressive, it doesn't have to be a 30-yard pass. It can be a 10-yard pass. That's still a safe pass, but in between lines, and it's a forward pass. I think that in itself will take a lot of pressure off of our defensive line, and when we're playing out of the back.
This is where I kind of I hear what you're saying, but I don't want him to do it. He tried doing it today. He tried stringing a pass down the middle today, and the ball went to the Juventus player, and then Lage even flipped out, and I'm like, see, just fucking do the easy pass. Stop doing this fucking putting the ball through the try to do the fucking Ronaldinho shit. Like, just
I'm not asking him to play a 30-yard ball, right? But like, try to play a progressive pass. Not always play the safe pass is what I'm asking for.
You got to pick your moments, right? Because you need that. You do need to break that line and get a fast break, right? You do slow down the game when you make the easy pass. Juventus, Juve recovers, and then you're stuck just rotating the ball. Sometimes you do need that pass, but you got to pick your moments for sure.
Correct. Yeah, I agree.
Who was before Feja though?
You had Javi, Matic.
We had Javi Garcia, Matic. We had
Enzo Perez.
Enzo Perez played there.
He was more of like an 8 for me. He wasn't necessarily he was a bulldog. He recovered a lot of balls, but I felt like he was more of an 8.
Yeah.
Well, he was a winger and then became an 8.
Yeah, we had Fernando Aguiar. Depends how far back you want to go.
Yeah, now we're going too far back.
Yeah, we had Katsuranis.
Katsuranis.
I like Katsuranis.
Yeah, and Samaris played defensive.
Samaris, yeah.
Oh, Samaris, yeah. Actually, we
had Weigl. We've had a couple. I want to read some of the comments that we have on Instagram. So the comments on Instagram don't come over into this interface, but I can see them. I can read through them. So we just pick a few here. John Ramos, 82. Without Florentino in that midfield, we have no player that will win a ball. Manu needs this half of the year to get into the starting 11. Different for Guimarães. Benfica, agree with that. There's a different weight on the shirt. He compliments our attack-minded midfielders, and then he mentions Matic and Shell as holding midfielders in the past. Let me touch on some of these comments here. Thank you to everyone that's commented. Keep them coming. Luis, go to sleep. Just before I fall asleep, I just want to say, Amo Benfica. Pedro Vieira, how are you? He says, what a performance today by Tinu. Are also surprised by Bob, played very well, especially in the first half. He also says we defended well. Luis says, as Rui Costa said, we started the season going for 5 competitions. We've won the only one we could so far. We're still alive in the rest of them. Let's see who else. Pedro Vieira says, Luis is commenting to Pedro. It's what's most important. The team proved that they're with Bruno Lage. SLBS says, I don't remember ever seeing Ba on the left. He did great. Good job by Lage. I thought Auschwitz was going to cover the left back position. I thought so too. Pedro Vieira says, aren't we signing a left back this week? That's the rumor. We'll get to that. I'm going to earmark that one. SLBS says, I see Antonio and Tomas fighting for center back and Carreras and Ba in their spots. Be curious to see what happens with Antonio after the transfer market closes. Be very curious to see if he shuffles that back line again, or is this another situation of putting someone in the shop window? I would hope not. But we did it with a Turco Cabral, or at least I feel like we did it with a Turco Cabral this weekend. But we'll see. Fabi says, big hug for everyone. Pedro also asked about Best. We'll talk about that. He also asked about Smithu coming back in the summer. We'll talk about that. Luis, Rendeiro, Miguel. Come on, Benfica, grande abraço desde Turin. Um abraço para ti, Miguel. Miguel was there with Luis Innocentes representing the Cantinho Benfiquista. Crazy match. He sent us some good footage, some good pictures, and he walks away. I think he said him and Luis went to 3 away matches this year in the Champions League, and Benfica won all 3.
Yeah, they got to keep going.
Yeah, so we got to keep the luck rolling. Yeah, they went to Monaco. They went today, and I'm trying to think where else did we go away that we won in the Champions League? Oh, Red Star Belgrade, first game. Yeah, so pretty good.
What were the games again?
They went to Red Star Belgrade in the first game, and then they went to Monaco 3-2, and then they went today. So 3 for 3 in the league stage. SLBS says we play with two defensive midfielders, Tino and Auschwitz, so we need two defensive midfielders on the bench. That's why, in my opinion, we got Manu and Leandro, the kid. Tino's best year was his first year. He has the occasional sloppy pass. Yeah, and that's the thing that I feel like if he can improve, I think he'll be a huge piece and a pivotal piece to the squad. I don't agree with the 2 defensive midfielders. I don't know, Oscar and Kenny, if you agree with that. I don't think Auschwitz is a defensive midfielder. I think he plays alongside him. But if you watch him, he's always the first line of pressure.
He presses high. He's more like he's a box to box guy. He's all
when he came here. I think he came.
He was a center midfielder. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He can play there. I just wouldn't prefer.
He can play. He can play anywhere. To be honest.
Yeah, that's true. We just haven't seen him play goalie.
Yeah.
Jaime Pardal says Coxu worst on the pitch, but great goal. It's football. I don't agree with that, Jaime. I thought he had a good game. But again, they're just opinions. Pedro said, I know Coxu was expensive, but he's a huge upgrade from the Tarat days. Remember that guy? Yeah. I mean,
wow. You didn't need much to upgrade from.
I don't think you can compare the two of them.
Let's just say Tarat won as a campeonato. Let's see if Coxu does.
Let's see. Joe Miguel says Coxu wishes he was peasy. Oh boy.
Oh yes, he does on that little.
Tino, best player in the game by far. No idea why they gave it to Pavlidis. I agree. I'm surprised that UEFA gave Pavlidis the man of the match. I'm assuming because he scored the game-winning goal.
Game winner.
But I think in terms of performance, I think it's pretty clear that Tino was definitely the best one there. Jean Miguel mentions Fejde as well. Let's see what else we got here.
There's some names. This is where the name drop.
Oh, Petit. I forgot Petit. Petit. Forgot about him. Witzel, Javi Garcia. Tino not going forward is a myth that social media makes us believe Tino is much better now in that. I agree. He is much better now. I don't think he was as good 6 months ago. I don't think he was as good a year ago. But I think we can all sit here and say Tino today, not specifically to today's game, but just today and overall, and Tino a year ago, he's definitely progressed. But Tino as a whole, since he's been at Benfica, hasn't progressed maybe as much as he should have. But again, he's still young, right? So he could be a late one.
Who you give the whose fault is that?
That's the coaching staff. It could be I think it's a mix of coaching staff and player.
Just give it to Lodge. Just say Lodge came in and Tino improved a lot more.
Stop.
Come on, just give it to him. The guy, look, that guy. See that guy right there?
We'll talk about that guy in a little bit.
You should wear your troll wig.
Yeah,
when you came on. Honestly, I'd say Matic is the best just because of his height and versatility to go forward and cause issues. I think Matic probably when you look at like the Fejas, the Javis, Matic is probably the better one with his feet. I would say.
Definitely has a better career.
The thing is, the reason why I think Feja overall is because Feja was here like 6-7 years or whatever it was.
Yeah,
and he got his 5 campeonatos, whatever it was. Like I think it was 5 leagues. So to me, is the guy that stands out the most. That's given us the most. Matic was here a season, maybe a season and a half, and he left right away, right? So to me, it's like, yeah, he was good. This is like Enzo Fernandez was good for the 6 months he was here, but he doesn't mean anything to me because he didn't really win shit for me.
Fair. Jaime says, enjoy our victory, guys. This will be forever. Night all. Good night, Jaime. Mike says, I kind of shat on Turin last week. Kind of. I thought he showed a bit more command and composure on the ball today. I thought he looked good. I think he had a couple big saves. That save off of, I think it was a header that he's at full stretch and gets it. If he's not that tall, I don't know if he gets there so comfortably, but I thought it was a good save. Again, I'm a fan of his. I don't think he's not the best. He's not the worst. He's still young. I think he's still going to go through some growing pains. I think he's got a lot of potential. He's got a high ceiling. There was a lot of teams after him. I think he's a good keeper, and I think time will tell. But I thought he had a good game today. In terms of the grouping, so Benfica goes through 16th place. And I'll show the bracket here. And this is where there was a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of questions.
We got to go through this.
People weren't sure what the heck was happening.
Well, can we start off? Can we start off with the question that's been asked around our group of friends? Like, did you guys like that first phase of the Champions League? Like
the
league
Kenny.
phase.
And let's add that to the folks in the chat that are listening, watching. Let us know in the comments what your take is now that the league version of this new format is complete. Did you like it? Was it indifferent? What would you change? I know we've said a lot in our group chat, but go, Kenny.
Yeah, can I just say, so one of the biggest gripes I'm hearing is that there's too many games, right? Too many games. If that's the only gripe you have about it, then I think you're missing the point, right? Because I think the league format gave more teams, I think more of the smaller teams, right? The Benficas and even lower, more of an opportunity to get to the next phase. And I liked this last match day. Like, there was a lot of movement. There were a lot of scenarios that could have happened where I don't think you see that same type of movement and checking, what's going on in the regular group stage or the original or old group stages.
Yep.
That was my thought.
Oscar, you agree?
I think if it was the old format, a lot of these big teams would have been qualified by this game, so they wouldn't even start a lot of the players. Like, I don't think we would see Man City fucking struggling to make it, stuff like that. Like, so, and then I think it gives, like Kenny said, it gives the small teams a little bit of a chance because we played that big team once, not twice, right? Mm-hmm. We played the team that has played Real Madrid over Liverpool, play it once, maybe we play them at home and get a result. Like, so it does benefit the smaller teams. I don't mind this format. It does give the small teams a little bit of a chance.
Yeah, and I mean, there's more teams, but I think there's, like you guys said, right, there's more of an opportunity. And right in the group stage, we saw some pretty interesting matchups, right, of big teams that we wouldn't have seen in the other format because all those teams would essentially be in the same pot, right? Mm-hmm. So they wouldn't end up being in the same playing field. So I'm a fan of it. Again, I gave the examples today in our group chat of, right, people talk about too many games, and it's like, I think the NFL is like the perfect example, right? Like, you've got 32 teams breaking out by NFC, AFC, and then each division, right? But okay, great, you've got 4 teams. Was it 4 teams in each, or 5, whatever the case may be? But then you've got, because the way it's all chopped up, you've got teams that make the playoffs that are under 500.
100%.
Meanwhile, you've got teams in other divisions that are above 500 and don't make the playoffs because their division was really good. So it's like, is that fair? Right. I don't think that's fair. So I think having it in this one league format, everyone's on the same playing field. You suck, right? If you're good, you're good, right?
And then you can get lucky and play bad teams or teams that are not as good and make it far. Like, we saw Brest making being a top 5 team for the longest time in this league, right? So you can get lucky along the way and get some good teams to play against and make it far as a small team. Which in the other format, like you said, all the worst ranked teams are all in the same group that cannot play each other.
Correct. Yeah. So,
and I'll say this too. So like the top 8 moving on automatically, and then the next, what is it? 16 or
16.
The next 16 having a chance for the playoff, right? Or that 2-game playoff. That allows also, because there's always going to be teams that are out of the competition by the last match. No matter whatever format
even in the last format.
Yeah, you're always going to have.
There were teams that were out with 2 match days left. Never mind.
Exactly. But you're still going to have majority of the teams are still going to be fighting, and especially in this format, are going to be fighting for those last 2 spots that they can jump. That, like, you could potentially jump 4 or 5 spots into a qualifying position on the last day, which I thought is cool. It's going to be, for teams like Benfica and the smaller clubs, it gives you a better opportunity to progress I mean, look at us. Benfica hasn't. We've struggled to get out of group stages in a lot of the Champions League renditions, and I think this will probably give us a better chance at moving or getting to the next phase a lot easier. And I'll just say this about I'm not going to call anyone out, but the whole too many games. I mean, this is coming from people that'll sit and watch. How many baseball games are there? 160 something. You want to talk about too many games? You sit there every single day watching baseball. Don't complain about too many games when you're sitting and watching baseball every night. That's ridiculous to me.
It's the thing that drives me crazy is we grew up in America, and American sports is built like that. A lot 100%. Of games, and then you've got playoffs, and the Americans love the playoff factor.
Right.
And this is the same concept, right? How many NBA teams rest players through most of the season and only really start showing up in playoffs, right? So it's like the argument of not liking this league plus playoff format for me is weird, especially coming from Americans. I could see like Europeans that don't like the playoff, but like we grew up with that. That's what American sports is, right?
Yeah.
So it confuses me.
And it's what is it? One or two extra games? Like this is not, we're not talking
two more group games. So if you basically from start to finish, if you were to win it, you'd have 8 group games. And then let's just say these two, so 10, 12, 14, 15 games. Last time you would have had 6 group games, first knockout, 2. So you probably had like 3 less or 2 less.
3 less. And if you're if you're the top 8, then you skip a game.
Yeah, so top 8 you skip 2.
Skip 2 games. So, yeah. It's really not. I liked it. I enjoyed the first phase.
So looking at the next phase, and this whole bracket here, I think is interesting because you kind of already know who you're going to fall into. And just quickly, Justin Portela, follower of ours on Instagram, says Gran Benfica Florentino had everyone on lockdown. He sure did. So we finishing 16th, and here's where the confusion was. People were like, "Oh, we're playing PSG." Like, no, there's an or in between. So I hate the way that I wish that they designed this bracket differently because it could be confusing. Because when you look at it, it's like, all right, Monaco plays Brest, PSG plays Benfica. But so there's a draw on Friday, and how they do it is there's 2 sides of the bracket.
The silver and the blue bracket, right?
Yeah, the silver and the blue bracket. And essentially what they'll do is they'll pick the unseeded teams and then the seeded teams, and every other goes to each side. So one goes to one side, next one goes to the next side, so they alternate, and they'll do the same thing all the way through. So Benfica will get either Monaco or either Brest. So those are the 2 options that they're going to get in the next round. And then PSG will get the other one of those 2. So PSG is guaranteed a game with a French opponent, as is Benfica. And then whoever progresses out of here, right? Let's just say Benfica and PSG make it out. Then it'll be the same thing. Benfica and PSG will play either Liverpool or Barcelona in the next round. And then I believe
I want Barcelona for revenge, but let's get to Brest or Monaco.
And then I believe the rounds after that, then it's a draw. There's no more seeding and none of that stuff. So these first 2 phases are seeded. Now, I guess let's look through these games. Well, first let's start here.
Can you explain to me the seeded thing though? Because
the seeded, basically the difference is seeded versus unseeded. Monaco and Brest, Sporting, Bruges, Celtic, City, Feyenoord, Juve are all unseeded. That means that they have to play in this playoff. Their second game is away. So basically by seeded, you have the advantage of being the cabeça de série, like they say in Portuguese, where you play the first game away and second game at home. That's your advantage for finishing higher.
All right. I thought it was like actual seeded ranking or something, but okay. So you just get the advantage of the home.
The advantage of playing at home.
Okay.
Looking at these 2 opponents, we've played one. We haven't played the other. Any preference here, Oscar? Or Kenny, I'll start with you. Any preference here in terms of Monaco or Brest? Would you want to see Monaco again since we've seen them again, or would you rather see someone else?
I mean, I really don't know anything about Brest, but I would take the lower, the unknown. I don't know. I don't know anything about Brest. I would think that I would take Brest, I guess.
So Brest, just to give you guys an idea of how they did, they lost 3-0 against Real Madrid. They lost 2-0 against Shakhtar. They beat PSV 1-0. They lost to Barcelona 3-0. They beat Sparta Praga 2-1. They tied Leverkusen 1-1. They beat Salzburg 4-0. They beat Sturm Graz 2-1. So, I mean, looking at these opponents, right, they beat all the teams that you would think are on their level, and they lost to all the teams that aren't theoretically on their level.
To me, it's an easy decision. It'll be Brest, easy. We played Monaco. They got a red card. We got lucky to get out of there with a win.
Yep.
I mean, I think it's been a miracle that we get out with a win. So Brest is an easy choice.
And looking at the French league, Brest is currently eighth in the league with 9 wins, 1 loss, 9 wins, 1 draw, and 9 losses, with a -2 goal difference. And Monaco, at the time that we played them, I believe they were second, if I'm not mistaken, but they're currently now third with 34 points, 10 wins, 4 draws, 5 losses. And they only have 1 win from their last 5. They lost today. So, you know, they're not in good form either. But I'm of the opinion I'd rather play Brest, even though they're having a decent season. The first time they've been in Champions League, if I'm not mistaken. Rather than play Monaco, right? Because it's one of those games where it's like, we already played you, so it's kind of like a mind games type of thing. And again, I thought we had a difficult time. I think we stole
2 legs. So yeah.
And I just looked at their head-to-head with Monaco and Brest, and Monaco's won the last 5 against them.
Against Brest?
Yeah.
And then looking down here, so looking at the other groupings here, Sporting Bruges, they play either Atalanta or Dortmund. What do you guys think of this grouping here?
Sparta is going to be out of the first round.
So Sporting,
they got lucky to squeak in today.
Yeah, they squeaked in, and
I don't see them beating Atalanta or Borussia Dortmund. I just don't see it.
Kenny, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. And they squeaked in today, so I agree with Oscar. It's gonna be a tough outing for them.
Yeah, Dortmund beat Shakhtar. They lost to Bologna. They lost 3-2 to Barcelona. They beat Dinamo Zagreb. They beat Sturm Graz. They lost 5-2 to Dortmund. They beat Celtic 7-1. They beat Club Brugge 3-0. And Atalanta tied Barcelona today. They smashed Sturm Graz 5-0. They lost 3-2 to Real Madrid. Smashed Young Boys. Beat Stuttgart. Tied Celtic. Beat Shakhtar. Tied Arsenal. So they had some pretty difficult opponents throughout their path. And, you know, not to say Sporting also had their fair share of tricky opponents, which is crazy to me. Like when you think, right, Sporting beat Manchester City, and then, right, like they were on such a high, and then
so did everybody else.
They barely squeezed in, right? So Sporting beat Lille, they tied PSV, they beat Sturm Graz, they beat Man City, right? So in those four games, they had 10 points, and they finished
with 11.
So in their final 4 games, they got 1 point, which was today.
This was the Ruben effect, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was after his. Yeah, so since he left, they only got 1 point, and today was the 1 point. So it's crazy to think how they started and how they finished. Looking at the other ones, Feyenoord, Juventus, Milan, PSV. See any advantages there? Interesting enough, Milan lost today to Zagreb, which I think was
fucking started trying to screw us. That's what he was trying to do.
And they got a red card. I didn't see who got the red card, but I saw they got a red card. But do you see any advantages here?
I'd love to see Milan against Juve. I'd love to see Sergio against Conceição. Fuck them both.
I mean, he beat them in the.
They've won. Juve has beat them 2-0, and then Milan beat them in the cup final. So I would love to see them against each other.
Here's another.
And then it'll be Italian
Dutch teams,
and Dutch teams against Dutch teams. So maybe the Dutch refs can go cheat for themselves.
So here's another I think positive of this format too. Like you get to see like rivals like that, right, from the same league.
Yeah,
Playing each other. No restrictions,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, which is fun. And then, of course, depending on how things progress, Benfica will, if we progress, will find themselves either with Liverpool or Barcelona again over 2 legs, and in that point, our second game would be away. And then the next
Dude.
bracket. So, like looking at this bracket, which is crazy, is
Doesn't it seem weird though? Like, shouldn't
Benfica finished higher, and
Yeah.
we get if we were to progress out of the playoff, we get the more difficult next game.
We get the most difficult because Liverpool and Barcelona is part 1 and 2.
Shouldn't Sporting and since they were 23rd, 24th, shouldn't they be at the top of that bracket?
You would assume that's where they would fall, right? I mean, essentially, they have a better path, right? Like I would want to be in this bucket
100%.
here, right? Because
yeah,
I mean,
I wouldn't, because I think we have a better chance of passing the first round. We have to think present, like not.
No, I get that. Yes, we have a better. I think we have a better path in this first round, but then the second round, you basically get fucking smashed the first and second.
But if you get to the second round, that's round of 16. Oh man, that's still a lot. I thought that was already quarters.
But I think if Benfica, for whatever miracle could happen, I think whatever team comes out of this bucket here, I think has a pretty good chance of making it to at least the semifinal. Right? Because I mean, you've got 1 and 2 here, right? Lille and Aston Villa. I mean, Lille's having a good season. Aston Villa's dropped off a bit, right? It's a Premier League team, but I mean, in comparison to Arsenal, Inter, Leverkusen, Atletico Madrid, right? Like I think, apart from this block here, I think this.
Yeah, no, we got the better side of the bracket. Obviously, just yeah.
I think we got the better side of the bracket in this first round. I don't think in the next phases we have the better side. I think this is more challenging.
Correct, I agree.
Yeah. And so the draw is Friday. And then the playoffs will be in 2 weeks. So the second leg is the 18th or 19th of February, and the first round is the week before that. I don't know what the date is, but I think it's the week of Valentine's Day.
Just imagine being Celtic on that on that fucking thing.
Yeah. You got Celtic City, Real Madrid, and Bayern.
Which is
crazy, right?
And
then
they have Leverkusen or Atletico Madrid. So
tough. But to think you could see a City, Real Madrid. They played each other in the league phase, right? Didn't City play Real Madrid?
Yes.
Yeah. So you could see them again in this first knockout phase, or you could see a Bayern Man City, which would be interesting, right? And again, these are games that you typically wouldn't see right out of the gates in that first round. So it should be interesting. So the first leg, I believe, is the week of Valentine's Day, and then the second leg is after that, and then the round of 16 is the first week of March, the 3rd and 4th, and then the following week. So we'll see how things progress on Friday, but I'm optimistic of how things will go. I guess I'll ask you guys MVP, but I think we'll all probably be on the same page. I think it's unanimous in this case. Tino, do you guys agree?
Yeah,
for sure.
Okay. All right. Talk about current state. So over the weekend, we dropped points again, ridiculously. We lose 3 points. We're 3 points back, or 6 points back now of Sporting. Again, lots to play for. We lose the game against Casa Pia. After the game, there's Bruno Lage goes and has a conversation with the fans, and he walks away and says, ajudem que eu vou resolver esta merda. Right. So that was making its way across the internet. And then within a couple of hours, I had received, someone sent me a WhatsApp of that 1 minute or 2 minute audio message of Bruno Lage in the garage at the Stadio da Luz with the comments that he made. And then after the fact, there was the press conference on Sunday. Rui Costa today spoke about it after the match. But Kenny, I'll start with you again. And again, I don't want to I don't want to add fuel to the fire, right? We're past it. We move on. It happened. We've spoken about it, but I just want to kind of get your thoughts at a high level. What your thoughts are on that of the situation. And I mean, fast forward to today, the reaction, like, how do you interpret that whole phase from like when it happened, as it was happening, and now the reaction that you get?
Yeah, I mean, it felt like the whole thing was crumbling underneath us, and then today, we're back on steady ground, right? I initially thought that my initial thought when I heard or when I saw that Benfica, because I didn't watch the game, that I saw Benfica had lost the game by a significant margin. I was like, we just can't get a hold of this league. I don't understand. Like, we have these opportunities to like get into first or like keep it close, and we just keep dropping points. It's frustrating, right? And then after the game, you hear, the guy standing behind Oscar whispering in his ear all these little things, and it's like, oh my god, dude, did this guy just like end his
Sabotage himself,
sabotage and end his coaching time here? Like, are we going to go through another? I really thought like this could end him. And I think after listening to his explanation, I like the fact that Bruno Lage came out and did a press conference to clear the air. I think there was a lot in that minute clip, like he had mentioned, right? You heard a minute of the clip of a 30-minute or 20-minute conversation. A lot gets lost in that translation. So I actually respect that Lage came out right away and cleared the air. And I did like what he had to say, that really what nothing is a surprise to his players. Nothing that he said hasn't been said to his players. And I think the players understand that.
Do you believe that though?
I do. Because it should not be a surprise to the players that, defensively, especially, that we're giving away balls and essentially giving away goals that easily. And so that has to be discussed in the locker room. And the players themselves are discussing that amongst each other, right? So I do think that is being discussed in the locker room, and it's not a surprise to anyone. And I respect and understood where Lage was coming from. And I do believe that he is trying to turn things around within the Benfica locker room and the Benfica fans as a whole. I don't like, and we talked about this, Mike, that those type of clips are getting out so easily, right? Who knows? I don't know who was around, who was videotaping that. I don't necessarily think it was an inside job. Maybe it was.
So there's fans. So that garage underneath the stadium is public. So it's open until midnight.
So there you go. But initially we thought it was an inside job, right?
Well, my gripe with that is, and I said it yesterday on the Portuguese podcast, is I don't think either of you guys disagree, or most Benfica fans, I don't think anyone disagrees with what he actually said, right? The content of what he said in the context that we can assume he said it in. My only gripe is Bruno Lage is very much a guy that his coaching methodology hinges a lot on him being close to the fans, bringing the fans closer to the club, his passion, his delivery to his team, more so at Benfica, because he's been there for many years. He's a Benfica fan, right? So that takes an elevated value to him. And sometimes I feel like still he teeters that line of like manager fan, right? Which is tough, right? And I don't know what that's like because I've never been in that position, but I can only imagine that it's not easy, right? Being a fan of the club that you're coaching, right? That's got to be super tough, right? To be able to draw that line. So my only gripe is those are things, in my opinion, those are conversations that you can't expose yourself, right? I get that he's trying to be genuine, and I appreciate that. And I'm sure fans appreciate that. Him being genuine, him trying to be humble and say, listen, I'm one of you guys, let's talk. But unfortunately, we live in a world today where everyone is just waiting for that opportunity to gain that click, to gain that viral content, right? Whether it's an audio, whether it's a video, whether it's a picture. And I feel like in the heat of the moment, after that defeat, he went to the fans at the stadium and said what he said. I feel like someone in the structura of the club maybe should have pulled him away in the garage and been like, all right, like, okay, let's just move on, right? They didn't. It happened what happened. He said yesterday in his pre-match press conference that was only 2 minutes. It was a 30-minute conversation. He's totally confident and not worried about if anything else comes out, right? Which was the other question. You know, is there more audio that is just waiting to be pushed out if something goes wrong? He says he's not worried about it. So that's my only gripe with it.
Oh, Mike, I'll pass it to Oscar. But to that point, though, how many times have we criticized the team after certain loss? I mean, we did this last year, where we complain like, oh, look at the players going to the flash interview, like the captain won't even step up, the coach won't step up, the president won't step up.
But have you noticed who's come out recently?
I haven't. No.
I made a comment the other day. Is what I have liked is I feel like in the last 3-4 games where we've had negative results, whether it's a draw, whether it's a loss, Otamendi and Di Maria have been in those flash interviews a lot recently. Right. Again, so there you go. Yesterday pre-match, Otamendi was there. Today post-match, Di Maria spoke before Rui Costa. Otamendi spoke after the game against Casa Pia. Right. So like we criticized that last year, right? And years prior. Mm-hmm. And I think we should all also be in a position where we can applaud that, you know, we have seen more of the captain and the leader coming out after these bad results, because, you know, it's easy to show up when things are going great. Right. But who's going to show up when things aren't going great? And I feel like Otamendi and even Di Maria have come out more frequently of late when you would hope that they would.
Okay. And I agree with that. And I also think that in that moment, losing that game again to Casa Pia.
Yep.
I actually did not mind that he had the sack, because other coaches we would have just gone back on the bus and left. And I do appreciate him again going over to talk to the fans. He got caught on video at the garage or whatever, you know, talking about it more. But I think he did the right thing by calling a press conference, explaining it. He had nothing to hide. And explained it, and I accepted his explanation of it, and I do believe him. The only thing I don't believe is that the $20 million player that he's not for, like Rui Costa has never forced him to play a player. It's very clear that in Casa Pia that Cabral was forced into the starting lineup.
Yeah.
And that does that, to me, that doesn't throw away everything else he said. I think he's protecting the club in that point, and he's protecting the president. But everything else, I did agree with him, and I have not been a huge supporter of Lage through the recent form. But I do respect that he came out and did that. And I'll just mention this: it was weird. Rui Costa was there, didn't say anything, and only decided to say something today. But I think we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, and just before I pass it to Oscar, I thought, damn, I lost my train of thought. What were you talking about before, Kenny?
I said a lot there, dude.
That he stalked to the locker room, that he stole everybody to the...
No, it'll come back to me. Oscar, what's your take here?
All right, I agree with Kenny. I personally think, obviously, like, it was a 2-minute clip out of a 30-minute whatever video or recording. There's probably questions from the fans like, why are you playing this player? Why are you playing that player? And then they edited the part where he says, Diogo, you know, o que eu faço? The guy costs $20 million. I have to play him, or else he loses value, and then the club loses value on that player. We're not running. Like, if I could make those changes, I would, and I would play this guy and that guy and that guy. But we cannot lose the value of the assets that we have on the club. So to me, he's just explaining to the fan that's questioning why you playing A, B, C, or D, right? And he's not. I don't think he's talking about a certain player. I think he's talking as in general. Like, this is how a business runs. We cannot just buy a player for $20 million and then not play him, and then he loses that asset is gone, and then the club goes under, right? So he's thinking business, and he has to kind of put. I see what Kenny is saying about Rui Costa probably told him, but I can see it also like Rui Costa hinting at it, not saying you have to play Cabral. I think Rui Costa says, "Hey, listen. We have a lot of millions invested in this team, and we cannot lose those assets. I know you're coming from the academy mentality, blah 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 blah, but there's a lot of millions invested in these players, and we cannot just throw them into the bench and kind of lose all those assets, right?
But
In
that's
a way,
every club.
And exactly. So in the way Lodge is explaining is like, all right, I have Coxu, I have Artur Cabral, I have this player, I have that player. In the back of his head, I was like, yeah, I could use João Rego, maybe. He can step in and play for Coxu. He probably do a better job and more Rasa and more this, but I can't because in his back of his mind is Coxu cost 20-something million, and João Rego right now is a zero. It's all in that. So to him is like, what the fuck do I do? And he's maybe making the decisions on his own, but in the back of his head, he's thinking of like, there's a business for Benfica. So I have no problem with Lage coming in. I just wish he explained this to the sound. I had a meeting like us, guys.
Mm-hmm.
I can change this around. I can.
And he may have.
Correct, and I think that's what he's saying. Just be patient with me. I'll get this turned around. I'll get this fixed. If there's a player that costs 20 million, I have to play him now. I'll probably sell him in the summer, and then I can put the player that I want playing. So just follow me, just be with me, be patient, and I'll get this turned around. I have no problem with that.
I think he just caught himself in a hot moment, and he was teetering that line of fan, coach, and it ended up burning himself. Hopefully it's a learning experience for him of like, I get he wants to be a genuine guy and be able to have those conversations. But again, like, and I'm sure they probably had that conversation internally and was like, listen, here's your lesson. Like, you can't be out there having these conversations because
it's the social media world we live in.
Yeah, you just expose yourself. The thing I was going to say, and I remembered when you mentioned it, Oscar, is the asset piece, right? And I wrote it in my article, is there aren't many clubs in the world that can have the luxury of having very expensive players on their bench, right? You've got the Man Cities of the world, you've got the PSGs of the world, right? But like the Real Madrid, that's a very small, exclusive group of clubs that just have so much money that they can live like that. The clubs like Benfica that are sellers, right? And they're probably always going to be sellers unless someone comes in and buys them. Even though Rui Costa doesn't have to say to the coach or whatever president, hey, that guy costs 20 million, right? As the manager, you know what Benfica's capabilities are and the league's capabilities are from a financial perspective. We talk about it all the time, right? You go get a player for 20 million. What's the expectation? That he hits the ground running and he's a stud, right? Mm-hmm. So the coach obviously knows that too. Like, shit, we just spent 20 million. If Benfica paid 20 million, this guy's got to be good. Even if he's not good, we got to figure this out. Him being on the bench isn't going to be good, right? He's an asset, right? So like Lars said in that comment, 20 million, you got to try to grind it out as much as you can, right? And we've seen that with Pavlidis. We saw it with Coxu at times. Not so much with Artur Cabral. We saw it a little bit last year. But you have to kind of grind it out to the point where it's like, all right, it's not working, right? We need to cut loss, and I feel like that's what's going to happen with Artur Cabral. But to your point, right? Like, it's an asset to the club. Them being on the bench is no value, right? Like, they're losing value.
Correct.
So it's almost like an unwritten rule. Like, no one needs to tell you, but as the manager, you know.
Especially managers been there around for a long time.
Exactly.
He's been through the fucking ranks, so he knows how the system works there.
Yes.
He's probably heard a lot of conversations from the higher ups on how the system works and what he has to do. And he probably coaching the academy probably is like, how come A, B, or C doesn't have an opportunity? He probably heard those explanations because A, B, C, or C is competing with this, and this guy that costs 20 million. So that's why he doesn't have an opportunity. That's why he can't have an opportunity. So that's why I think he knows more than anybody. If Roger Schmidt probably wouldn't have known because he doesn't have the background in Benfica. Lage does. And he knows he doesn't have to be told by Rui Costa, you have to play Artur Cabral. He knows he has to play Artur Cabral against the Casa Pia on the Mercado when we're trying to sell him, because Mercado is going to close up and you can't after that you're stuck with them.
That's the key, Oscar, right? Like, we're in the transfer window.
Correct.
And Mike, I think you've already alluded to it. I think you're the one that said it, right? Cabral's kind of already rumored to be on the go.
Atlanta United is the biggest offer right now. I thought it was 16 plus 2.
And I'm sure
both the Palmeiras are after him, but they want a loan. So Atlanta right now is the best lucrative option.
And I'm sure these negotiations have been going on already, so that he already knows, like, okay, Cabral's on the way out. Like, let's try to, I don't know, pump up his value or something.
If anything, that game didn't help his value because he didn't.
Not at all.
I think he touched the ball 2 times. But again, this I feel like that plays a big piece, and people are saying, do you, Milton says you guys have an opinion on who it is.
I think it's Cabral, 100% Cabral.
Yeah, because I mean, if you look at all the other expensive players, I mean, you got Kokshu, Cabral, Pavlidis. Pavlidis and Kokshu have played regularly. Pavlidis and Kokshu have had their ups and downs, but I mean, of the three, Cabral's been the one. Even
Cabral's like
year,
the third option at this point.
It's losing value. Cabral has been the one losing value.
Correct. Yeah.
Like the other two have not lost completely the value that they gave in.
Yeah.
But Cabral is the one losing it.
Yeah. He just hasn't. He just, and I think, I don't know if it was Kenny or if it was someone else in our group chat that basically just he just feels like he's just so far removed from the team. Like you just feel like he just doesn't fit in to the style. He could be great somewhere else, but I just don't feel like he fits in. I don't know if we had to guess. If I had to guess, I think we'd all agree that it's probably Cabral, especially since he played this weekend unexpectedly, considering Pavlidis scored a hat trick against Barcelona, and then if Cabral comes into the lineup, and I would be willing to bet that he's gone in the next day or two. I had also read today that he had asked his agents to also look for another opportunity for him in this window. So, So then today, Rui Costa comes out, or yesterday when they left the airport in Lisbon, he comes out and says, "Hey, I'll speak to you guys after the game tomorrow." I thought it was a bit risky because you don't know what's going to come out of the game today, right? So naturally having this conversation today off the back of a win and a progression into the next phase, great, right? La-di-da, everything's great. It makes it easier to have that conversation. I think this conversation, or I know this conversation would have been a hell of a lot more difficult if the result didn't go the way it went. And just kind of quickly, and then I'll get you guys' opinion on that. And I know Kenny, you wanted to touch on it as well, is kind of at a high level. He basically said, there's full trust in the team coaches, or the team has trust in the coach. I think that the result and the performance on the pitch spoke for itself. There's trust between me and the coach. He knows that it was a mistake. I admit that it was a bad situation, because they asked him that, obviously this was a bad situation. He said, I agree with that, right? It's a bad situation. He explained himself. I'm here to explain myself. Are things where we want them to be? No, we should be better. We shouldn't be 6 points back. We know that. But it's still a long way of all the competitions that we're in. And he said highlighted 5, with the 5th one being the Club World Cup in the summer. Up until today, we've only had one opportunity to win one title, and we won it, right? Which is the Taça da Liga, right? We're in the quarterfinals of the Taça Portugal. We're in second place in the league, which is our biggest issue at the moment, our biggest gap. We're into the next round of the Champions League, and we've got the Club World Cup at the end of the year. So, there's a lot to be playing for. And then someone said, "Can you guarantee that Benfica is going to win the title?" And I was talking to Kenny offline, like, what president or coach or player is going to guarantee? And he said, "What I can guarantee you is that we have the team, we have the staff to be able to compete all the way through to the last round of the Campeonato to fight for the title," which I like that answer. So overall,
Oscar would guarantee it.
Oscar said Portugal would win the World Cup with Bruno Lage.
Guaranteed.
Better chance than Foz Bola.
That's true. Although he did win one, or won a Euro.
Euro.
So I think overall I liked what he said. I think it's a mix of, it was a mistake, it was an inopportune situation and moment, and then again, the Portuguese media just loves that type of stuff. They just eat it up, and they just
that girl pissed me the
from
fuck
CMTV.
off.
She wouldn't let anyone else talk.
I don't know who she is, but she pissed me the fuck off. I swear to God, I was going to throw the remote at the TV. I'm like,
she literally was relentless,
dude. It's all about but you trust Bruno Lage. Does Bruno Lage trust you?
And then you hear his answer. He was like, "Yeah, a relação com Bruno Lage é muito má," like sarcastically. Like, dude, shut up. God, it was brutal. So go ahead, Kenny. So what do you think about this?
Yeah.
Ending of this.
So I didn't see the press conference. That I should have seen it before getting on here. But you kind of filled me in on it. So it seems like he had the right messaging, right? My only gripe with it, and you did a great article on Cantinho. If you guys haven't read it, you guys should go read it, about the issues. There are deeper issues with Benfica, and it starts from the top, right? And to me, and I'm not saying that Bruno Lage and Rui Costa aren't on the same page, but by not doing, to me, Rui Costa was sitting in the front row when Bruno Lage was doing the press conference. Most of the questions were directed or, about the relationship with Rui Costa, the two and two together. Yep. To me, I would have rather seen them both up there together, unified with the same message. This is not an issue. To me, I'm not saying that there is an issue between the two, but when you're taking one press conference and then 2 days later you're taking another one without, it almost seems like you aren't on the same page, right? So it's almost like a visual thing that doesn't make sense. You could have cleared the air, been both of up there together, unified, showing, look, you guys have questions, we'll both answer them right here. Here's what happened. Here's the explanation. We're on the same page. I'm not. He's saying, Bruno Lage even pointed to him like, Rui Costa in the front row. Yeah. He's never made me play A, B, or C over anyone else. Rui Costa could have answered that with them together, and it would have been a clearer message for me. And again, I'm not saying that they're not together, but visually there's something there that the perception to me, I don't like it. Like it doesn't feel good. So that was just my point that I wanted to kind of put
Oscar,
out there.
what do you think about the two different?
All right. So Rui Costa saying that yesterday, we have a game tomorrow. I don't want to talk about this. Yep. Let's concentrate on this game. That's all I'm concentrating on. I'll talk about it after the game. To me, says it all. I'm glad he did it yesterday and not just come out today and say, "Oh, I'll answer any question you guys want today after we win."
Because he put himself on he put himself at risk.
So he was going to answer it, lose or win. So I respect that. I absolutely respect that, and it worked out for him that we won and we looked united, and everybody was holding hands and with the fans and all that. So it worked out for him. But he said it. I'm going to answer questions after the game tomorrow. So good for him. The other thing is, Bruno Lage got himself into that situation. I think Rui Costa was like, you got yourself in that situation. Yep. Go answer for it. All right, go answer for it. I'm gonna be here and watching you, but you got yourself in that situation. Answer for it, and then I'll do my part another day. That's the story.
If there's one thing that I've ever agreed with you on, is that I said it yesterday on the Portuguese podcast. For me, the perception that I got from that press conference on Sunday was, it was almost like Rui Costa saying, listen, you put yourself in this spot and made it difficult. Now you're going to be responsible for getting yourself out of this difficult spot. And when the time is right, I will also say my piece and give you the confidence and my vote of confidence in public. But now is your moment to go figure your shit out, right? Like, as a manager of a club of this dimension, you shouldn't expose yourself in that way. You did. Now go sit up there and take the answers, or take the questions and answer.
And another thing is, Bruno Lage probably said, I got myself into this. I'll take the head.
And he could have, he could have also done that as well.
100%. So it could have been either way. Bruno Lage said, you know what? I put myself in this spot.
100%.
I'll take care of it. Like I'll sit there by myself and I'll answer the questions that anybody asks. I don't want anybody help or hide behind anybody.
Completely agree. I think it could have gone either way. Let me see what we got here. Milton says Rui was spot on today, answered everything on point, and they kept asking the same fucking question. Andrew, what's going on? Grandes amigos, força. Abraço para ti, Andrew. Mike, didn't Rui say it was Bruno make the call that he wanted that he wanted to go to interview alone because it was his problem? Could be wrong, but I thought Rui said that. He might have. I don't recall it. But he might have said that. I'll have to go back and look at it.
I can see that. I can absolutely see
what I remember him saying is something along the lines of, eu não queria andar ali domingo, o presidente a falar por cima do treinador. So essentially saying, like, that was his moment to speak and clarify, because the situation was about him. And here I am today, clarifying and clearing the air as a whole.
I respect that.
About the situation. And they even asked him, like, you played soccer for a lot of years, and how have you? And Rui Costa's like, I've gone through this situation multiple times as a player as well, right? So again, at the end of the day, I think fortunately it ended up panning out well. He exposed himself significantly by saying he was going to speak today. Stars aligned. It ended up working out. I hope that we can just clear the air, move forward. I had questions about the locker room. I think many people had questions about the locker room. How are they going to react? I think at least today we saw a reaction that's a positive one. I think still Amadora at the weekend away will be another tricky game. It'll be interesting to see how the team reacts.
And another thing is, I think there's a clear message to the team, to the players. if somebody asks about the audio, you haven't listened to it, you haven't heard it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they know.
Yeah, but that's I guarantee. No matter who they ask, they're gonna say no.
They all did. I mean, Di Maria said it today
And
after the
Otamendi
match.
said it.
Otamendi said it yesterday pre-match. So clearly that's the message. But also, Bruno Lage said yesterday in his pre-match press conference that the players were there too, and Otamendi was 20 to 30 meters away from where he was, right? So if that's the case, then they all listen to the conversation too. So it's not a surprise to them. So them having to listen to the audio of something that they were present for doesn't make any sense. But I don't believe that they didn't hear it. I mean, they're humans, and I'm sure they have social media. Andrew says, Rui spoke very well, saying Benfica hasn't lost anything yet and has actually won the only competition they could win. Yeah, I mean, we're in everything. We won the one final that we were able to go to. So can we be better? Should we be better in the league? Yes. But there's still a lot to play for. I mean, none of the top three are going to run away with it in current form.
Like Luis said, there's no drama. And I agree. There's no drama.
I don't think there's drama. I think there was.
It panned out today, or else he would have opened the can of worms again.
Yeah. But I'm hopeful that, and I guess quickly, I want to get your thoughts here. And I want to touch on a comment that one of our followers left on one of our posts today, which was after the game, he said, it was Rui Manuel Pires, just for the name. He said, o Benfica é bipolar, só pode. Dá cabo dos seus adeptos, nunca sabemos o que vai sair dali. Hoje, irrepreensível. Parabéns, equipa. Which I feel like sums it up, right? Like, we're here, we're there, we're here, we're there. Like, it's just a fucking constant up and down roller coaster. Oscar, I'll start with you. Like, how do you explain this constant, like, we fly high, we go in a lull, then and then like where everything points to that cliff that you're always referring to after this weekend. If there was ever a time to fall off the fucking cliff, it was this game. After Casa Pia loss, after all the bullshit with the audio,
in Barcelona robbery,
in the Barcelona defeat, and then you show up and you've got this performance, and it's just like, fuck, I wasn't expecting that.
I think there's a saying like trocar o chip. And I think Benfica has not gotten that under control. Like they do, like for some reason, like the mentality on a Champions League game is totally different than the mentality against Casa Pia. So
this weekend will be interesting too against Estrela da Amadora.
Exactly, coming from a high, going to play Estrela da Amadora, away to Estrela da Amadora, which is a small stadium.
Yep.
After playing in Turin on a fucking 80,000 fans on the stadium. You have to change the chip, and that's what I think Benfica is lacking, is that mentality to be able to, okay, now we're playing the Portuguese league, and let's play the same exact way we just played in Turin, but man, that has to. I mean, I highly hate to criticize, but that has to do with the coaching. Coach has to be able to install this mentality in the players, like that.
But I wouldn't even say it's just I think it just has to be a culture from the club.
100%.
Like, not just like, I think everyone involved and everyone around, but also the players have to take a responsibility too, right? Like, as a player, everyone wants to play under the lights for the Champions League, right? Naturally, that in itself brings an added motivation for you as a player. But it's these games, the Estrela da Amadora's away, right? It's the Casa Pia's away that are going to win you the titles in the league. Right, like you can't just play for the fucking Portos and the Sportings, right? That's not going to win you the league.
But Mike, we're seeing that with Sporting and Porto too. So like this year is just a weird ass year.
Rui Costa said that today in the press conference, right? He said this year is very weird in the sense of the amount of points that the big three have lost, and he also mentioned all big three changed coaches, which a reporter even told him that's never happened in the history, right? So that all together, it's a very weird season. But again, like I think that responsibility, in my opinion, lives with the culture of the club. I think it lives with the coaching staff. And I think it also lives with the players. Like, the players themselves have to understand that responsibility of, like, whether I'm playing Casa Pia away, naturally it brings, right, against Casa Pia, were players thinking, fuck, we got a big game against Juventus, right? Should I put my foot in? Right, I want to play that game, right? Do I run the risk of maybe getting it? Naturally, they're going to think that in the back of their head, right? But like, those are the games that, those 3 points could be a huge difference for us in May, right? So I think that responsibility lives with everyone, not just
in a lot of things. Like, people say that the coach, he cannot have the same 11 every single game because we play every 3 days, right? So he does change a few guys in the 11, and then we see what happens against Casa Pia, right? So like another thing is that's what he's saying in these audios. Like, what the fuck do we want me to do? Like, I can't teach these guys to jump. Like they know they have to jump and they don't. Like that kind of stuff. Like, so what does he only play the same 11 so he can, because they trust?
You can't.
Like, you really cannot go a season playing the same 11. So you have to trust the Rollheisers. You have to trust the Artucoglu's to start a game. You have to start the Cabral to give Pavlidis a break. But when you do, that shit happens. And then what? It's the coach's fault.
Correct. And before I pass it to Kenny to give his opinion, if he has one, is even Rui Costa touched on it today, which is if the coaches and the players don't go up to the fans, they criticize because the fans or the players and coaching staff are too far from the fans. And then if you do go and talk to the fans, then they shouldn't have, right? So it's like same thing with the roster, right? We talked about it last year, right? Why doesn't he rotate? Same thing with this year. Why isn't he rotating more? And then when you do rotate, there's always that criticism, right? He's never going to appease everyone, right? I think we all agree that there has to be rotation in certain moments because these players aren't robots. They need time off. They need to rest. They need to recover. I just think there needs to be moments. And the gripe that I had with this weekend was I feel like the one specific change, Artur Cabral for Pavlidis, was the one change that couldn't and shouldn't have happened given the game that Pavlidis had against Barcelona. And I feel like that is what derailed, in my opinion, killed us, even though we were winning 1-0. But I feel like that was the one that couldn't have happened, especially in that situation. Kenny, do you have anything to add?
I'll just say I agree that it's been a weird season, but being such a weird season, I still feel like Benfica has enough of a team to have like taken over first place and grasp the hold of it and like stayed in front. So yes, all the teams are kind of flustering, but it doesn't make any sense. And there's something missing, and I don't know what it is, but there's something missing with the inconsistency within the team. And I'm sorry, again, I'm not putting the whole blame on Bruno Lage, but like, if the same starting 11 was going to be the same starting 11 all season, then we wouldn't need a coach, right? Like, you've got to make the changes. That's what he's there for. And he's got to find the right moves to be made game to game, the right changes to be made, at halftime and adjustments. And that's on him. Like, we can't be having games where, we're beating Barcelona and having a chance to beat Barcelona and then go and lose to fucking Casa Pia. Like, that just should not be happening in the middle of the season when you should already know what your tactics are, what your core is, what changes you're going to be made. Like, you can't make excuses that these aren't my players or these guys don't play. Like, that's on you. That's your team. You've got to develop them.
I get what you're saying, Kenny, but I would be more on Lage's case if he had the preseason and he had the players and
that's fine.
Yeah. Okay, I would have been on his case. But right now, he within the players that were given to him, because he came in 4 months ago, right? The players that were given to him, he found the core, which is a good core that can compete with Juventus, Atletico Madrid, Barcelona, Porto, and Sporting, and so on, right? He found the core. But then to insert those other pieces to give that core breaks is where he's struggling, right? And that's the pieces I think he says, give me time and I'll find them. I will get them. But he needs that time because he didn't create this team. He didn't buy these players. He didn't request these players. So he's either going to insert players from the younger squad, right, from the Academia, or in the summer insert players from the market. But I think I'll criticize him a lot more if he started the season. And I'm not. How do you not have a core 15 or 16 that you can use on a regular basis?
Right, and I had to look it up. I actually thought Lage came in a lot later than he did. Like, he came in 4 games into the season, I think. It was a quick change.
It was like 4 months ago.
But I agree with you. So he's had a long time with this team. But I agree. Not having a preseason makes a big difference. Now he has a transfer market.
Choices on players.
Look, he has the transfer market right now to kind of adjust and see how the second half of the year goes. But I still think, like, the team is good enough and to to have already gotten into first place and to be more consistent. I still fault him for not having a consistent, game after game after game. Like it's way too jumpy. It's like like Mike's the guy said, right? The Benfica feels like this bipolar system. Like it's up and down you just can't have these swings like this in the middle of the season right now. Like it should be more consistent. I'm not saying you should be like sweeping the rug on every team, but like Casa Pia, we were up, and then 3 goals in the second half or whatever happened.
2 in the second, 1 in the first with that bad pass from Tony.
Like those are rookie mistakes. Like how do you have your back line fucking up like that? Like that's just, I don't know. But there's something missing. I'm not saying it's like going to be critical, but there's something missing. And once they figure that piece out, like I said, this team is still good enough to win the league. And the way the rest of the rivals are going, like we should be able to win it.
Yeah, and SLBS says I said to a friend of our team that our team, when it on, we can beat anyone, but there's something there that is preventing us from dominating the league and being more consistent in the Champions League. I think we're all saying the same thing, right? Like there's, and I think it all starts from the top. Like I think there has to be that winning culture, that demanding culture from the top. Right. I mean, we talk about it all the time, right? Like Benfica's profile, even if you look at the profile of players that Benfica typically buys, right? We've talked about it a number of times, right? When you look at the type of player that Porto buys, right? Rasudu, guys that are going to run through walls, that South American garra type of DNA, right? Otamendi is like so far out of the DNA that Benfica is used to buying, right? And then you look at the others and it's like the Prestianis, the Rollheisers, right? The guys that are like tiki-taka on their tiptoes, right? I don't want to get injured. I don't want to get into a tackle, right? And like, that's just the profile of what we're used to. And I feel like that's just ingrained in our DNA of the club. And I feel like, I really think that it's just at the top. Like, I mean, how many times do we talk about every time we play against Porto, regardless of how we're in the season, we go in scared.
Yeah.
Besides the last game.
But like in our lifetime, right? Every time you go up against Porto, whether it's home or away, right? There's just that, and it's just, I feel like it's just a cultural thing, and hopefully we can get over the hump.
And it can change. I will say this: it is something that can change, because look at Spartan. Spartan was like the little kid that everyone beat up on, and Spartan built that identity too now, where they're the bullies. They're definitely a bully team, and it sucks that we're not. We're like the finesse guy instead of like the.
You see what Ruben did with Spartan, right? It took him a few years to get that team to function, get oiled and function the way he wanted it. If you see a coach that's doing the right moves, not fucking up the team by investing a lot of money, like Raja, I think, in my opinion, did, and leaving him on the bench. So basically, he was, or I don't know if it was him. It could have been him. Like, I like Koksu. And then they go and spend a lot of money on him, and then left him on the bench for João Neves. So a guy from the Academia came in and took his spot. So that kind of business is not good for Benfica. Like Mikey said, Benfica is in a business where it's a seller. So if we go spend 25 million on a player and then leave him on the bench and he loses his value to 10 million, we go under. We legit go under. Like that's how it is. We don't survive. So if we see that the coach is implementing the right strategies to the club, I think that coach deserves time to build the team to function and to get oiled and to be just like Sporting did with Ruben Amorim. Even though he finished in 4th spot in the first season he was there, right? It was the 4th. He was on the Braga, but they gave him that.
But he came in his first season. He came in like April. He only came in like the last.
And then but I know the second
season he won his first full season. He won.
Right.
And then his second season, he finished in 4th and then 3rd, I think. But that's the difference. And we've talked about it here before, is no manager, apart from JJ, in our lifetime, or at least in the last 25 years, at Benfica is going to withstand winning a title and then finishing 4th and staying.
4th, he's out. Yeah.
Right.
But it's because of the expectation and the resources that Benfica has.
I totally agree. But I think if we see that the coach is doing the right moves, is building the team to, like, and you see it because you as a fan, so Rui Costa is obviously a soccer guy. He knows how that works. You see he's doing the right moves. I think that's a guy you have to give him opportunity to go forward. Even if you don't win the league, Just give him an opportunity and take the fucking heat from the fans. Take it because
It's
in your
tough.
back. It's tough. I know it is because our
But then
fans are not easy
but it's
to
one of
deal
those things where you're running a risk, right? Like, what if he holds on to him, right? Rui Costa did that with Roger, right? Held on to him,
But he
and then
saw those
it
bad
ended up
moves being
backfiring.
done. A lot of money being spent to be on the bench. With Casper, Cheryl Loop who's a fucking stud, was loaned out after spending a lot of money on him. Like
But
that.
JJ did the same thing.
Yeah, but like that's that I don't get it because Jay also spent 100 million, but he won. That's the difference
Well,
between
he
JJ and him.
won. He won his first year, and then he didn't win the next couple of years, and then Luis Fifita held on to him, and then it ended up paying off in the end because he won. Rui Vitória ended up winning 3 years in a row too, right? So like that, the foundation was there in place. But again, it's tough, right? Especially at Benfica, it's not easy because of the investment, the resources that we have. Not many coaches are going to be able to. Benfica fans want to win now. That's just the reality of it, right? And if you're not winning, it's not good enough, right? But I agree, right? Like we've talked about this before. We can't have this revolving door of, Rui Costa said it today. Nós não podemos andar neste circo sempre de quando perdemos, o treinador tem que ir embora, o presidente tem que ir embora. Right? Like you can't. You can't create stability, right? Kenny and I were looking at numbers. In 25 years, Benfica's had 20 coaches, right? And we looked at all the other equivalent teams, big clubs in the top 5, right? And the average was typically around 17, right? And we have some examples of the Inter Milans, and I think AC Milan, maybe one was at like 26, right, in 25 years, which is crazy.
Sporting was 26 and 25
Sporting was 26 as well, right? So it's like you can't, if you want stability, and that's what I was talking about with Rodgers, you need some consistency, right? And you're hinting to that as well, Oscar, right? Like if you see the right pieces being moved and being done, right, you need to build that consistency if you want longevity and consistency of winning.
But if you see the bad pieces being moved,
correct,
then you have to
get rid of
stop the problem right away.
Correct, I agree with that. Just quickly on some comments, and then we'll wrap up. Jonathan says 16 million for that bum, Artur Cabral. Jesus. Jezzy 80 says, yeah, 16, sell him ASAP and run. Also says that Casa Pia game was an emotional letdown from the loss, robbery from Barcelona. Jezzy 80 also says midfield's the consistency. Have been able to rebound from losing Enzo, in my opinion. Team defense is clearly the problem. Yeah, so lots of things that we can improve. Shiku says, I agree with stability when you can see the progression. Just quickly, 30 seconds before we close out, there was some comments here that I had flagged. Thoughts on Best leaving? Any opinions?
Nah.
I did not mind Best. Like for some people say that he's not a Benfica player. They're also saying, from what I'm understanding now, they're saying that Ba is not a Benfica player. Like,
yeah,
I just don't get it. I mean, like, who else is better than Ba to play right back in the last? I don't know.
He has his gaps.
Yes,
but I mean, who doesn't?
So
Grimaldo did too.
Grimaldo did very exactly. So like to me, it just makes no sense. I think Best, if he didn't get hurt when he got hurt when Carrera started playing, Best would have been probably our starter, right? And Carreras would have probably never gotten the confidence that he has now to become a stud. So, and Best was performing really well. I think he was, but I think Best is not a player to be a backup. So yeah. if he's not starting, then
he had a good season at Heidenheim. He scored a lot of goals, but he was also playing winger.
Yeah, if he's not a starter, then I think the only solution we have is to sell him and get somebody that can be a backup.
Yeah, I can't remember how much we paid for him, but the rumor is the deal with Freiburg is for 10 million. And naturally, if he leaves, I would assume, or Benfica should go get another left back. And there's this Norwegian kid from Nordsland, who apparently is tall and he's young. I don't know if it's a loan or if it's a purchase. They also mentioned Barco, who was in South America. He's a Brighton player. He was on loan at Sevilla, if I'm not mistaken. People rant and rave about him. I don't think he's adapted as well to European ball. But maybe a change of scenery may help him. But we shall see. Kenny and Oscar opinion on Nelson Semedo rumors potentially coming on a free this summer.
How old is he now?
With free, but with what salary?
Well, he would naturally have to take a salary cut. He is 1993. So shit, he's still pretty young.
He's 30.
30. No,
31.
30.
Yeah, 31.
Yeah,
He'll be
31.
32 this year in November.
Yeah, so he's fine. I mean, he would be a good player. I just think his salary right now is he has to take a really big cut because I think our problem is we're getting these players from outside of the country, and the only reason they're coming to Benfica is because salary is we're keeping the salary really high compared to.
But don't forget, there's a tax rule in Portugal that if you've been out of the country for I think it's like 5 years and you come back, Benfica doesn't have to the player or Benfica doesn't have to pay the tax because basically Portugal wants them to come back and help the economy. So that also plays a factor in it as well. So just take that in consideration. So there would be Benfica wouldn't have to pay a specific tax on him because he's been out of the country for so long. So that could also. I'm looking here.
It'd be a free transfer. Yeah, if it's a free transfer.
Yeah, it'd be a free transfer, and then again, they would get a cut off of his salary because there's no tax there. I think it's for like 2 years when you return. He's on gross pay, rumors, 4 million at Wolves.
Yeah, he would have to take a cut. But yeah, I mean, free transfer. I don't think you have a lot of risk there. Is he? I don't think he has any like major injuries, right? He's not like a Renato
like,
coming in and
no.
So what do you do? You sit Ba?
That's the thing, right? I mean, they'd have to figure out
competition there, right?
Yeah.
I think that's good competition.
It is good, but one of them has to sit. Now, do you sit at two? Even if he takes $1 million cut, it's a $3 million player. Do you sit a $3 million player a month or whatever it is salary?
But again, that's a discussion they need to have.
Right, and that's just like again, you can't play the same. That goes back to you can't play the same 11 every game, right? So like that, I feel like you have a natural competition, and it's kind of like you're going to have the best form of both of them because they're both going to be competing for the starting, and I think that's a good problem to have.
Well, with the quantity of games we have, I think it'll be good to have two guys, especially the guys that we attack really deep, that run their asses off back and forth all game. Is good to have two guys that can actually play. Not only say, okay, Ba's in better form, let's play Ba. Ba's going to play all the games. It's going to be like, okay, Ba, you're playing these games. Smith, you're playing these games, and see how it goes.
Do you think that they're both like the same type of player, or would you say like one's a better crosser, one's a better defender, one's better going up, or are they kind of the same?
I think Nelson Smith was a better defender. Nelson Smith was pretty good going forward. But I would say now, in my opinion, I would say Nelson Smith is better defensively. Ba, I don't think Ba is better offensively. I just think he gives you a better dynamic offensively because he's more mobile. He's a little bit quicker. That's my take, Oscar. I don't know if you agree.
So there's traits that you can, tactically that you can pick.
Yeah,
from,
and Vespa Lizo says here Nelson Smith is better with the ball, which is one thing that Ba isn't so great with. Ba's more of a north to south guy. When he gets pressed, he gets himself in trouble. So that's a good call out too. Nelson Smith is better with his feet, or with the ball at his feet. SLBS says I'd go for Lindelof for Man United. There's a rumor that Lindelof, who's also end of contract this summer, and he's also, I think he's 21 too, or 31 too. Victor Lindelof, 94, so 30. He's 30. Yeah, so he'll be 31 in July.
If Lindelof can't start for the junk team United has, he's going to stay for Benfica?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good point. Sheik Marcelino says we need two good players for position. If you sell Ba, you'll need to get another one anyways. I mean, they can go get a kid from the youth as well, as long as the kid from the youth is good enough. Vespa does a no. Lindelof, no. Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of moving pieces there. The market closed on Monday. Rui Costa said today he can't speak about it, obviously, because there's negotiations happening, and obviously they don't want to negotiate against themselves. Vespa says we have 3 great center backs, 2 with the future. Otamendi is key for the team. So by the time we're here again next week, the transfer market will have closed, and we will have plenty to talk about as it relates to that. People coming and going. We've got Estrela da Amadora on Sunday afternoon here in the U.S., Sunday evening in Portugal. It's going to be a tricky game, despite the fact that Estrela da Amadora is in the relegation zone. They currently sit. My page isn't loading, but I think they're 3rd from the bottom which is what,
They
16th?
are in the relegation zone. Yeah, third from the bottom.
Yeah. What's their current form? My page is frozen.
Oh, I gotta go back here.
They have lost and tied the last 4 games, beat Rio, lost to Porto, so they're in a bad form.
Okay.
I mean,
I lost high.
Yeah, they lost at home to Surreal 4-2 recently in January 5th.
Okay. Yeah.
We beat them 7-0 already for the
Tasa. Yeah. Different game, but yeah. So either way, it's one of those tricky games away from home. Still, the Loda Field's not that big. It's a tight spot, right? Off the back of a big win, right? Potential banana skin, as Kenny likes to call them, or banana peel. So hopefully that's not the case. But so we'll be back next week. Hopefully off the back of a win. Trap game, that's what it was. Hopefully off the back of a win. We appreciate everyone that was in the comments. One last one, SLB. Can we get back up for Cockshoes and Natu isn't doing it? Yeah, I'm curious to see if they send Natu back. I hope we don't spend money on him. Because he's just too injury prone. He disappointed me. Milton says you guys think you need an upgrade at goalkeeper. I say no. Kenny, Oscar.
Listen.
Ruben, no.
Turin to me is a starter, right? But do I trust Samu to be his backup?
No. Oh, that? Yeah, no. But you can get another kid. I don't think you need to go invest on a backup.
Yeah, I agree. We paid $9 million for Trubin.
I'd rather them go spend money in the midfield because I do think like Coxu needs a replacement. I just think you need some better players in the midfield.
I think we need a left back and a striker in this remaining window. What do you guys think?
I just saw the message about Renato. Did Renato end up leaving?
No, he's still here, but there was rumors that Benfica was going to try to give him back. I don't know if it's true or not in this window. But I mean, if they could, they may as well, because I mean, he's not going to fucking play. He's always hurt.
Yeah, he's always hurt.
And you free up a spot for someone else.
Yeah. I'm done with that. I had a feeling that wasn't a good.
I was hopeful.
I was really hopeful that you.
Me too.
I thought because Renato to me has been one of those guys that like his full potential. That guy was.
If he's on, he's a monster.
A beast.
Problem is, he's just never consistent.
He hasn't been in years. Like that's just. No, I agree with you, Mike. Left back, definitely a striker.
We already got a midfielder.
I would still like to see someone else at midfield.
Milton says my uncle thinks Vlaco Dimos is better. SLBS says get Audi back on loan. Yeah, I don't think he's coming back. I want to see more of Jean Rego.
That's the most Audi like love I've seen on this chat. I usually think like I'm on an island by myself, but thanks, chat.
Jesse says on Instagram, Smither definitely better technically. That's great pick. That's great to pick him up free transfer. Great show, boys. Keep it up. And 100% Kenny. So someone else agrees with you, Kenny. You got a fan club now. Back. The Canadians aren't watching anymore, and we got other people that like you. So that's good. Yeah. And I wanted to end with this comment, Oscar. I'm sure this will trigger you from Vespa. Okay, guys, have a good one. If you get deported from the U.S., you guys have a place here in the Azores. So. No, I needed to end with that one when I saw it. My uncle also think that he died from unknown causes. Jesus. We went dark on that one. I hate Audi, dude. Couldn't catch a ball. Gentlemen, as always, a pleasure. Thank you, everyone that was in the comments tuning in after the fact. If you are, leave us comments, leave us your thoughts. Don't forget to check us out on social media. Subscribe, like, follow. We're on all the major platforms. We'll be back next week. Have a good evening. Viva Sport Lisboa e Benfica. Good night.
Good night, guys.